how dirty.
What?
Avi knocked off my. Look how gross.
No.
And then your glasses work. Is it on?
No. There you go.
I wish Softa lived near us.
It'd be pretty cool. What? Dude, I gotta start. It's like.
I know.
All right, love you. All right, come on up. All right.
No, what time is
7:30. We're starting now.
it? Okay. Wait, do you want your phone on?
Yeah, leave it on.
Okay, sorry. Do I sit here
Right there.
with this in my lap?
You don't need that until a little bit later. You can use the prayer book.
I have a yarmulke on, right?
Yes.
Alright.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Great to see all of you. Welcome to Temple Ahavat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. And this is a very special Shabbat. Every Shabbat is, of course, special, but not every Shabbat does your son become a bar mitzvah. So Avi is right behind me. He is the bar mitzvah for this Shabbat. And next to me on my right is our soloist, Allison Rosoff, and down tickling the ivories, Joy Katzen Guthrie. We invite you to follow along if you're here using the Siddur or prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, dwelling place of prayer. And welcome to all of you who are watching the live stream. You'll see the picture-in-picture with all of the Hebrew prayers along with transliteration and translation as well. We are going to begin with one of Avi's favorites, How Good It Is, the words of Hine Matov. You'll find the words in Hebrew on page 10 or right on the screens. Going to continue with Light These Lights, but first I'd like to recognize our Rabbi Emeritus, Gary Klein, who's sitting in the back row. Wonderful to have you here celebrating Shabbat and my son's bar mitzvah with us. Thank you so much for your presence and your guidance since I've been here in July of 2020. We're going to continue with a meditation on lighting the Shabbos lights. Light these lights. Now it's my pleasure to call forward some members of my family who are here to help us light the Shabbat candles. My wife Ida, my daughter Maytal, my mom Leah Gottlieb, my sister Joey Rettler, Donna Labovitz, who's a longtime family friend from way back to when I was growing up in Massachusetts.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadliknei shel Shabbat. You'll see on the next slide Ukraine's national flag as we continue to witness the tragic and unprovoked war and humanitarian crisis that continues to unfold. Let us this evening pray for shalom, for peace. May our national leadership continue to lead with strength among the other nations of goodwill. May the soldiers, as well as civilian fighters of Ukraine, maintain their strength, perseverance, and courage in the face of hostilities. Holy One, spread over Ukraine and the world your shelter of peace, your Sukkot Shlomecha. Guard all the families whose lives have been unrooted due to the conflict. May their bodies, their homes, and their lands be protected and safe. And let us do our part to build a loving, just, generous, and life-sustaining world speedily and in our own days. As we say together, Amen. And going eastward from Ukraine, you'll find the land of Israel, where many hundreds of Ukrainians have emigrated in the past 8 weeks or so. And with this in mind, we'll sing these words, this arrangement by Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel lives, our God yet lives. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael. 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 O Davinu Chai, Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu Chai, Chai, O Davinu Chai. O Davinu, O Davinu, O Davinu Chai. We'll continue on page 26. One of the ways we sanctify God's name is with the Kaddish, words of holiness, the Hatzi Kaddish on page 26.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash Shmei Rabbah, Yomad Yivrach Yurtei V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chai Yechon Uvyom Echon, Uvchai Yidukol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman Kariv, V'yemaru Amen. Yeshmei Rabbah Mevorach, Lehalam Lo Meyamaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yipa'ar, V'yibnoman, V'yidnasei, V'yidhadar, V'yidaleh, V'yidhalal, Shemei Dekudesha Brichu, Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata,
Damiran B'yama. Amen. Let's rise for Shema and its blessings, which begins with the words of the Baruch, the call to prayer, on page 28. Lai lai, ai lai lai lai, ai lai 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 lai, ai lai lai lai, ai lai lai lai, ai lai 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 lai. Orechu et Adonai, Amevorach. Orechu et Adonai, Amevorach. Baruch Adonai Amvorach, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Amvorach, Leolam
lie, 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 lie. Let's continue together. Prayer for creation on 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv. Right on the screen, we're going to sing Roll into Dark, Roll into Light. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Ore, oh, malala, goel or mipnei hoshen, goel or mipnei hoshen, vehoshen mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. We'll continue on page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We'll sing Open Up Our Eyes together. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes. Teach us how to live our heart with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Vayeh. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue chanting the words of the Shema. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, soul, and might. Page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Let's read on the top of 39 words of truth and faith together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Words of Who is Like You, Mi Chamocha, found on 40. Mi Chamocha, Bailim, Adonai. Mi Chamocha, Edar Bachodesh. Mi Chamocha, Bailim, Adonai. Mi Chamocha, Edar Bachodesh. Norati lo. Chamocha, Bailim, Adonai. Mi Chamocha, Nedar Bachodesh. Mi Chamocha, Bailim, Adonai. Mi Chamocha, Nedar Bachodesh. No Rati lo, Osefele. No Rati lo, Osefele. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Continue on page 42. Grant, O God, we may lie down in peace. Dan Nichols' arrangement of the Hashkivenu.
Shalom. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Shalom. V'hamitenu shomreinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Shalom. V'hamitenu shomreinu
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. And now it's my pleasure and honor to call up my son, Avi Scheiberger. He is the bar mitzvah, and he'll be leading us in the first few blessings of the tefillah, which begin on page 46, with God open up our lips. I'll ask all of us to rise.
Adonai sifatayv tifta ufia gita hilateha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Elohei Leah, Agil Hangadol Haniporan Ora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Zoher V'Si'ot Uvi'ula Liv Mebenehem, Yaman Shemo V'Yava, Melech Hoser U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekin Avraham, Zizrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'elam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Atah Yoshia, Morid Hatal, Mekokel Hayim V'Hesed, Mekaye HaKol V'Rahamim Ravim, Someth Noflim V'Rohei Holim, Umati Rasurim, Umekaye Emunato B'Shenei Afar, Mihamo Habal Givurot, Umidomela, Melememi Tumahaye, Umatzia Vishua, V'manatayotako, Baruch atah Adonai, Mehaye HaKol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadosh Kadoshim B'Kol Yom Yalucha Selah.
Baruch atah Adonai El HaKadosh.
Feel free to be seated. Let's all say Yasher Koach to Avi. It was a great job.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We'll be calling you up later on in the service toward the end when we get to our Shabbat Kiddush. We're going to continue now with the Emsaot, the intermediate blessings of the Tefillah. First, for the holiness and sacredness of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat, and a prayer on 56 asking for God's presence to always be with us as well as with Israel. Baruch atah Adonai HaMachazir Shechinato Litzion. And a prayer of gratitude, many things for me and my family to be give gratitude for, and hopefully for the congregation as well. On 59, Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha Ulha-Na'eh Lechodot. And always the Tefillah ends with a prayer for peace for a world that is definitely in need of peace. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, Bashalom. And for our meditative time of reflection, on the ensuing slides, you'll see a wonderful song written by Craig Taubman called You're on Holy Ground. I'll give full credit to Allison, who suggested it in honor of this evening. And hopefully you'll be able to sing along as soon as you can. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, everything, everyone, every place, every way, where you stand, where you walk, where you love, where you pray. All of life is holy ground.
Every he, every she, every word, every who. It's in her, it's in me, it's in them, it's in you. In the bitter, in the sweet, in the calm, in the storm.
All of life is holy ground. So walk as if it's holy ground. Breathe as if it's all around. Talk and make a holy sound. Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. Every hurt, when you heal, when you laugh, when you pray, when you doubt, when you keep, when you give it away. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day. All of life is holy ground. So walk as if it's holy ground. Breathe as if it's all around. Can make a holy sound. Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground.
One story, one journey, one tapestry we weave. One people, one glory, one legacy we leave.
every second, every minute, every hour, every day.
Everything, everyone, every place, every way.
Where you stand, where you walk, where you love, where you praise. All of life is holy ground.
Can you feel the holy ground?
Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. It's one of Avi's favorites, and one of mine too. We're going to continue with prayer and blessing for healing. If you turn to the middle of your prayer books, page 253, here you'll find the words of Mi Sheberach, albeit a modern version, written by the late Debbie Friedman. We, at this time, of course, think of all those who are casualties due to the ongoing war in Ukraine and pray for their recovery, along with the following individuals that we think of on this Shabbat: Yonatan Reuven ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Manuel Cruz, Eddie Deerfield, Gail Dwyer, Evelyn Edelman, Rob Edelman, Corrine Fairfield, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Deborah Gill, Leah Gottlieb, Nick Martin, Arnold Miller, Melissa Miller, William Miller, Alfred Mortelli, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Bonnie Richmond, Stephanie Ross, Robert Schoenfeld, Cyril Chagrin, Arlene Charlotte, Barbara Smith, Jeff Stark, Milton Teichman, John Walsh, and Sharon Worster. And if there are any other names that you'd like to add, either aloud or in your hearts, feel free at this time.
My father, George Stark. Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
After cruising at altitude for a couple of hours, it was mealtime during a flight from JFK to Tel Aviv on El Al, Israel's national airline.
And a flight attendant walks up to Moshe, who's sitting in the front row where the bulkhead is, and asks, "Would you like any dinner?" Excited for some food, Moshe claps his hands together and says, "So, Nu, what are the choices this evening?" After pausing for a brief moment, the flight attendant responds, "Yes or no." It's a long-held maxim that there are two ways of traveling to a holy place. You can either go as a tourist or you can go as a pilgrim. Some people say it doesn't make any difference at all. Either way, you get to experience everything the holy place has to offer. While others believe there's a big difference between a tourist and a pilgrim. And they point to the intentionality and level of awareness that one brings to the holy place as the deciding factor. So who's right? Using Moshe's trip to Israel as an example, fictitious though it is, we know that visiting the Holy Land, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is a bucket list destination for millions of people around the world, Jewish or otherwise. Many people decide to go to Israel and they take a tour, perhaps after seeing an advertisement on TV or watching an inspiring video, or maybe just by word of mouth, hearing about the land. While others, they feel that they're making pilgrimage to Israel, which more than likely was prompted by a sacred text or their religious tradition. Many Jews look to our biblical ancestors as an example. Up to 3 times a year, 2,000 plus years ago, they made a pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem. Today, the closest that we can get to this is by visiting the Kotel or Western Wall in the Old City. Another way to think about it is that a tourist travels when it's convenient to travel, whereas a pilgrim travels when the time is right. I believe this also holds true when it comes to experiencing sacred times and sacred moments. I've been thinking about the differences between a tourist and a pilgrimage a lot as my family has been preparing and prepping for my son Avi's bar mitzvah. First, because I work with bar and bat mitzvah students on a weekly basis, but it's very different when it's your own child who is joining you on the bima. And second, because for many years I've found inspiration in Rabbi Jeff Salkin's wonderful book, Putting God on the Guest List, in this regard, for it was he who shared the distinction between the tourist and the pilgrim in the opening pages. He wrote this book way back in 1996 as a way to help parents and children approach this simpler, joyous life cycle event as pilgrims rather than tourists, with the ultimate goal of having families being touched spiritually while they're making this sacred journey. To my mind, the journey of becoming a bar or bat mitzvah begins many, many years before a student reaches the age of 13. Rather, it's a process of learning and growing that begins when a son or daughter is brought into the world, which calls to mind one of my favorite midrashim, or folk stories, in all of Jewish literature. According to the story, the angel Lila, which means night in Hebrew, she teaches every soul before it's born. First, she lights a candle, allowing every soul to see from one end of the earth to the other. Then Lila shares the entire Torah with each individual soul, from Genesis to Deuteronomy and so much more. Yet, at the very moment the infant is born, Lila slightly strikes its lip and the child forgets everything. Conveniently, this serves as a mystical understanding of how we get this groove that we have right above our lips, which for any budding anatomy students is known as the philtrum. Now, this idea that we knew things before we're born isn't exactly exclusive to Judaism. It just happens to predate Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious by a good 1,000+ years. Wouldn't it be nice, to quote the Beach Boys, if babies burst into the world filled with knowledge? I, for one, think it's better that we learn over time. And that's what becoming a bar or bat mitzvah is all about, at any age, whether as a young adult or as a fully blossomed adult. Taking the time to accumulate knowledge and insights that can be used throughout the lifespan. That's why Jews are known the world over as Am Sefer, the people of the book. Last night, in the early stages of writing this drash or sermon, I returned a phone call from my mom. She wanted to know if I had received her message from earlier that day. It was a nice story about how she was listening to Avi practice his Hebrew over the phone in the midst of her hair appointment. As it turned out, there was another patron who heard those same Hebrew words, and she called out to my mom, "I'm Jewish too." Evidently, the second well-coiffed individual wished my mom and Avi a hearty mazel tov. Congratulations on his big day. But just before we ended the call, my mom had a request, actually two. The first is the closing song, which you'll find out what it is later. And the second, Matthew, don't forget to talk about Lador Vador, from generation to generation. So I responded, trying to be a good son, "Okay, Mom, I'll try and fit it in." So here goes. For many people attending a bar and bat mitzvah, one of the most poignant moments is when the Torah is passed from one family member to the next. Indeed, it is a sacred time and a sacred moment, not only for the visual image that it presents, but also because of its message and meaning. Because while the Torah is being passed through the family members, we sing, Lador Vador Nagid Godlecha, from generation to generation, we will always praise God's name. The Torah serves as the enduring link in the great chain of Jewish tradition called Shoshelet HaKabbalah, which began with Abraham and Sarah 3,000+ years ago and continues to this day, from great-grandparents to grandparents to parents and to their children. Invariably, this is when what Rabbi Salkin calls the river of tears begin to flow. I didn't coin this term, but it does speak volumes. These are sweet tears because they belong to parents who take pride in their child's accomplishments, just as my wife Ida and I will be proud when our son receives the Torah. But this is also a time for grandparents to shepnachis or rejoice as they go up to recite the Aliyah blessings before and after the Torah reading. It's truly a sacred moment in time because at once, parents, grandparents, perhaps great-grandparents and friends are thinking about the past, present, and future at once. The past, in that we notice if a loved one isn't there when the Torah goes down the line. The present, in that we celebrate joyfully with those who are here, whether they're in person or whether they're watching from at home. And finally, we think about the future, because when the Torah is received by the youngest generation, the bar or bat mitzvah, we know that Jewish tradition and all of its beauty will continue. Jewish life cycle events keep us grounded. They help us connect with our families and the Jewish community as a whole. They also help us draw close to God, especially when we show gratitude in these moments. And it keeps us tied in a very good way to the enduring values found in these 5 books. Experiencing the sacred is precisely what this week's Torah portion is all about, Kedoshim, which means holiness. Here in Leviticus we read, Kedoshim tihiyu, you shall be holy because God is holy. Now the Hebrew word for holy is kadosh. It's spelled with 3 Hebrew letters, kuf, dalet, shin. It's the same root that we find in the word kiddush, the blessing or sanctification over the wine or grape juice that we'll enjoy at the end of the service. It's the same word that's found in all of the 5 different Kaddishes, the prayer that sanctifies God's name. It's something that's special, set apart, and sacred. The Torah uses this word kadosh to describe Shabbat, the holidays, festivals, and even the Jubilee or 50th year, all of which are set apart from ordinary time. But in this week's Torah portion, we learn that holiness applies to each of us too. For instance, we're taught not to reap all the way to the edges of the field or gather the gleanings of the harvest. This means we have a communal responsibility to make resources available to those who are hungry. We're taught not to place a stumbling block before the blind. This means we need to be inclusive of the many different types of individuals, especially those with physical, intellectual, or emotional challenges in our schools, in our workplaces, and in our homes. And we're taught not to favor the poor or show deference to the rich. This means we need to treat every person fairly and without bias, regardless of their ethnicity, their background, or the color of their skin. All of these mitzvot or sacred obligations can help us become holy, just as all of them reinforce the importance of loving your neighbor as yourself. Kedoshim tihiyu, the Torah says, you shall be holy. Every year in the lectionary cycle, we're reminded that God sets very high expectations, not only for us as individuals, but also for us as a community. May all of us here this evening, in person or watching online, choose to approach life and experience life's sacred moments as pilgrims rather than as tourists. Remember, tourists travel when the time is convenient, while pilgrims travel when the time is right. In a similar way, being a mensch or a decent human being isn't just a matter of convenience. Rather, a mensch is someone who knows what to do when the time is right. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue now with the words of Aleinu, the adoration. Please rise as we open the ark. You'll find the words of Aleinu on the screen and on page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כלויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
This is the time of year that we count the Omer. I think I put the slides for the Omer right before the Aleinu, so Mike, if you'll go back, there you are. You can also find the meditation and then blessing for counting the Omer. Historically, this was the sheaf of barley that Jews who made pilgrimage to Israel would give as an offering on the Mishkan, on the holy sanctuary. On page 278 in the prayer book, you'll also find these words. If you'd like to join me first in the meditation, Hineni muchan umzuman l'kayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer, which means I'm ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. And here's the bracha, the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. All praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom echad v'esrim yom shehem shlosha shavuot la'omer. This is the 21st day, which is 3 weeks of the Omer. Conveniently, every Friday night, we're just going to add another 7. So it goes in those multiples as we spiritually prepare for receiving the Torah that happens on the 50th day, the Feast of Weeks, called Shavuot. Well, now, if you'll advance to the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 294, we'll call to mind and to heart families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days mourning their loved one. On this Shabbat, we remember with fondness Sally Levy, cousin of Denise Freifeld, Harold Eisner, father of Tammy Wolf, Stanley Kaplan, brother of Janice Kane, and Richard Rich, friend of Denise Freifeld. We also mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing the following individuals on this Shabbat: Adela Aaron, Lily Altner, Stanley Barnett, Morris Bloomberg, David J. Dillon, William First, Marcy Grauer, Louise Hawk, Claudette Coben, Sheldon Melamut, Norman Namath, Francis Porres, Minnie Roth, Jack Siderman, Harriet Steckler, Adelaide Stiff, Lori Stuller, Paula Weber, Hilda Weinberg, and Adolf Wolf. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit at this time? Thank you. We say Zichronam Livracha. May the memories of all of these good people continue to be a loving benediction in their loved ones' lives as we rise together to offer the words of Kaddish praise, words of holiness. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma dibra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayei kol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam u'lamei al-maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal shemei dekudashah b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav huya aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and throughout the world as we say amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated.
Avi, come on up, and you are going to help lead us in the Shabbat Kiddush, which you'll find on the screen and also on page 5 in your prayer books.
There is no page 5 in there. That. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'yava uvratzonin kilanu Zikaron lemase v'reishi kivu yom tehila lemikra kodesh ze'er letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'harta liotanu kidashta mikol amin B'Shabbat kodsheha b'yava uvratzon in kol tanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
Chaim to life. Good. Once again, let's say Yasher Koach to Avi. All right, we are going to continue with the Motzi. Motzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Some Shabbat announcements are in order. It's my pleasure to call forward Edie Ekber, and she'll be sharing these announcements with all of us this evening.
On behalf of the Temple Board, welcome to our Shabbat evening service. Many thanks to Rabbi Matt, Allison, and Joy for a beautiful service, and to our tech crew, Nicole and Mike Skalka. Mazel tov to Rabbi Matt, Ida, Maytal, and the family and friends on Avi's bar mitzvah, and Avi Yasher Koach. If tonight is any indication of what tomorrow will be, it's going to be amazing. This year's confirmation class is holding a 50-50 raffle fundraiser on going through May 13th toward a gift for the congregation. Tickets are $5 each, and the winner will be announced on May 15th. A donation link is available on our website under Donation Confirmation 50-50 Raffle. On May 10th, we're going to have a parlor meeting with Gaily Schiff, Jewish National Fund's liaison for LOTEM, an organization making Israel accessible for children and adults with special needs. Sisterhood Board's installation and tribute to past presidents will be on Tuesday, May 10th at 6 p.m. at the Whitehurst Gallery in Tarpon Springs. If you are going, please leave enough time since the traffic is quite heavy on East Lake Road. Our Social Action Shabbat service will take place on Friday, May 13th, honoring Ellen Wall's leadership. On Saturday evening, May 14th, we will welcome Gulf Coast Jewish Federation's 2 Israeli emissaries, Or Greenwald and Rotem Sharifi, for a Havdalah program highlighting their work, increasing awareness about Israel. Rabbi Matt's next set of adult education classes, Navigating the Journey of the Life Cycle, begins on Tuesday, May 17th. Just a couple more. On Wednesday, May 18th, Ed Marks will lead a Profile Encourage program for the Palm Harbor Museum about how our congregant, the late Frank Weiner, and our community stood up to the KKK. And next Shabbat morning minyan will take place on Saturday, May 21st. Following the service, please join us for a no-nick Shabbat in the social hall. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Edie. I did say I was going to tell you what our closing song is, and we should have a really nice oneg in the social hall. Sorry for all those who are watching on the television. I know some very well-meaning congregants have baked some beautiful baked goods along with other goodies that the temple has provided. Ein Keloheinu. I told you, Mom, I would do it, but I did not tell you what version I'm going to do because that's open for me. On 322, you'll find these words, and we're going to sing it to the Beatles. Let it be. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemachenu, Ein Kamoshienu. Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemachenu, Mi Kamoshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu. No del Emalkeinu, no del Moshienu, no del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Emalkeinu, no del Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Emalkeinu, no del Moshienu, no del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Emalkeinu, no del Moshienu. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. We'll conclude our service as we've been doing with a prayer for our health and well-being. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation of protecting life. Thank you one and all for joining us on Shabbat, and Shabbat Shalom to you all.